Well, awesome. Well, today we're going to be talking about growing your business with SEO in Google, how to understand what SEO is and how to understand some of the changes and what Google's looking for in order to be able to, again, align our website and our web presence more specifically to grow online and to essentially get more business and customers. So the first thing I just like to kind of start with is understanding what SEO is to make sure that we're all on the same page. So to understand SEO is to understand kind of the terminology behind it. And so SEO essentially just stands for search engine optimization. What that is if we turn that phrase in on itself, if we can just understand, how we can optimize our search engine presence, essentially how and what is Google and Bing and AOL and DuckDuckGo? What are they looking for and how are they looking at your site? If we know those two ingredients, we can essentially align our website and web presence to more align and help them more easily access our website and ultimately get higher rankings. So today, what we're going to be kind of talking about here is we're going to be talking about 5 main kind of factors. Probably the most important one is content is key, how the content on your website is going to factor in the different search engines, how they're reading your website and what they're essentially kind of reading. We'll get a little bit into social media, how mobile devices are changing this, some Google tools and different Google advertising, essentially from the perspective of how are all of these things either affected by or going to affect SEO if we kind of do them and kind of help you along the way. One thing that I do like to kind of mention is, yes, we're seeing all of these different type of search engines to the right here. We are going to focus on Google. And the main reason we do that is specifically here in Minnesota, we a lot of times on average, small businesses will see 87 to 92% market share for search engine traffic, meaning that when someone comes from a search engine to your website, 87 to 92% of the time it's coming from Google. So you might be asking yourself, well, what about some of the other search engines? And it's definitely a valid answer. It's just being realistic that the vast majority of people are going to utilize kind of Google. The other positive thing here is everything you learn here today, even if it has the word Google on it or not, is essentially going to have a ripple effect or a trickle effect to the other search engines out there. The reason for that is Google is essentially kind of the trendsetter or the trailblazer of search engine optimization. But all of the core aspects we're going to talk about here today are going to be applicable to any search engine out there. So again, at the end of the day, what that means for you is if you focus and utilize Google to help yourself rank, you'll still help yourself rank on Bing, DuckDuckGo, Ask, Yahoo, AOL, the other search engines kind of out there. So it's just something to kind of remember as we go along with this. Also, I kind of quickly like just to do the search anatomy. And honestly, you'll see, these 4, sometimes a 5th or a 6th kind of component on either Google or other, search engines out there. But one thing just to kind of know, just go through these real quick so we know what the terminology is. Anytime you do a search, doesn't matter if it's one letter or a full sentence, or you're speaking in to a speaker like your phone and asking Google, again, a whole question. Anything you type or say into the search bar, so to speak, and hit enter, that's called a search query. Then a lot of times you're going to see potentially, again, these 4 main kind of components. You'll have paid ads at the top there. You'll have local listings, which are going to be predominantly, obviously, for local kind of searches. If something is, being able to trigger that locally. We'll also have organic search results, which is a lot of what we're kind of talking about here today. And then you might even see kind of a knowledge graph or an ID card, which is a visual representation of a business out there that might be your business, or obviously we might want it to be our business when it comes to that. But these are really kind of the main 5 components that we're going to see on Google or other search engines out there. Okay, now as we start to get into SEO, it's important to understand SEO is split into 3 different types of SEO, and they're done in 2 different phases. That's one of the most important things to kind of realize. So the 3 different types of search engine optimization are going to be back-end, front-end, and off-site optimization. So back-end optimization is usually what everyone kind of associates with SEO. This is going to be all of kind of the HTML and kind of the coding. This is where sometimes people think the magic kind of happens, but we're dealing with alts and metas and settings and different kind of plugins. It's everything, again, behind your kind of website that people are going to be able to kind of access internally to be able to, again, optimize. Front-end optimization, on the other hand, is going to be pretty much everything that your company and your clients, your customers, your potential customers, everybody, again, out there that can touch, feel, and see when it comes to your kind of website. So all of the content, the words, the pictures, the videos, the experience, again, all of that is going to be labeled as front-end optimization. And last but not least, the one that gets forgotten about the most is offsite optimization. That's going to be everything that's not your website, but then is essentially pointing to or connected to. So these can be social media platforms, local listings, Better Business Bureau, Yelp, YouTube, anything that's not your website, but using your URL to kind of point. And as we look at this, you can see that 2/3 of our of SEO is actually derived from the actual website, but 1/3 of it is going to be offsite, which is going to be, again, actually not our website. So it's important to realize that this is why we use the phrasing, your web presence, establishing your online presence, enhancing your online presence, because yes, again, we're dealing with website and different platforms and everything, but it really is going into the grandeur thing to ultimately create a business relationship with Google. And that gets into our next component of, we have our 3 different types of SEO being back-end, front-end, and offsite. And then they're done in 2 different phases. And those 2 phases are called foundational SEO and ongoing relational SEO. And really the difference between these is foundational is usually done once. This is usually if you're building a website or potentially rebuilding a website, or if you haven't taken SEO seriously or kind of want to reset, you can also do foundational. Essentially what foundational is in, again, kind of an analogy term, is that if you already have a website out there, I should say, you're actually lifting your house, which is your website, up, and we're scraping out and we're relaying that foundation to your house and putting it back down. What that essentially is doing is we're laying the foundation to the relationship with Google. When we come out of this is all like essentially like your core content and core SEO pieces on your website. Out of this, we want Google to understand what we do, where we do it, and who we do it for. A lot of times, what the biggest mistake that people make in SEO is they skip to relational SEO, which is building an ongoing relationship with Google and essentially saying why Google should rank you above others when someone is searching for your products and services and don't know you exist. The biggest mistake that people make, though, is they're essentially trying to be Google's best friend, and Google's turning to them going like, hey, who are you again? And that's ultimately the biggest mistake here. So that's why we want to make sure we understand the 3 different types of SEO, that they're done in these 2 different phases of foundational and ongoing relational. And if you remember one thing, honestly, from this presentation, take away that SEO is a long-term business relationship with Google. If you understand that, everything that we're doing here kind of flows into that, and it makes a lot more kind of sense. Another thing to also kind of realize when we're talking about search engine optimization, and this is even more so as, again, technology increases and as Google becomes bigger and bigger and search engines become bigger and bigger, is that at the end of the day, you essentially want to make Google look like a rock star. And so what does that mean? That means that when Google knows what you do, where you do it, who you do it for, they can more easily answer somebody's question with your results on your website. And that's ultimately there. Every time you create a page, every time you create a video, every time you create something on your website, it's a potential answer to someone's question. And so, yes, you might be solving when someone's on Google searching for that, but Google's essentially kind of getting credit for it because they're facilitating that answer for someone. That could be someone obviously searching directly for a local painter in Minneapolis, or it could be, how do I stop a draft coming in from my window? And maybe there's a resource you did, and they're kind of getting exposure to your business. That kind of gets into a marketing kind of question and answer. But this is ultimately what we're trying to do, is we're trying to provide solutions to users that are searching on Google and ultimately making Google look like a rock star. And when Google looks like a rock star, they want to reward you with higher rankings because people are satisfied and people are clicking on your links and getting the results that they want. And so that goes into then, okay, how do we keep building that up? And how do we then, align our website and our web presence to Google so that they can essentially kind of rank us? And it starts with the content on your website. And ultimately, with content, it starts that around keywords. But here's the thing that I try to, again, stay, okay, when we start trying to build content, let's take a step back and understand how Google is actually looking at that content. So what Google does is they send out little bots to essentially crawl and scan your website. It's called a spider technique. They're essentially just going out there, analyzing the content and essentially gleaning the meaning behind it and the context behind your content. So it does, again, it's important to understand again, that we want to start with keywords and put some time and effort into that, and then build content out of those kind of keywords. So this is an exercise I help a lot of times people with, and it can honestly be a very simple kind of process here. None of this that we're talking about here is really rocket science. Yes, again, the Google algorithm in itself and sometimes how these components work in the technology is pretty complicated, but really the core essence of what we're doing really isn't. And so when we talk about, again, creating content and starting with keyword research, one of the exercises I take people through is, for instance, just making lists. So I tell people, make a list of your demographics, make a list of your services, make a list of your products and categories, and make a list of your geographics where you're doing these. You can probably kind of tell we're answering those questions from foundational of what you do, who you do it for, and where you do it. That's essentially what we're kind of doing. Then I also say, okay, use some phrases that you think you would want to kind of search for, or that you would, want to rank for, that you would search for. And so sometimes you might have 3, 4, 5 different types of lists here. Now, the key then is pretty much just mixing those lists together. If I've got a list of my services, my demographics, and my geographics, it's picking some of those terms and kind of mixing them together. Now, here's where you can either do the simple way and the easy way, or most likely kind of the correct way, or what I would kind of recommend. The easy or simple way is you just making these lists off of your own mind, maybe getting some feedback, and then just mixing them together. And you essentially have a list of maybe 10, 20, 30, 40 different keywords that represent your business. And then we can build content off of there. Also, I do want to clarify one thing before we move forward too, is when I say keyword, that essentially means a search query or a keyword phrase. So like for Skoll Marketing, if I'm trying to rank for Minneapolis web development company, that's not 4 keywords. That's actually technically 1. So that's what we're essentially creating here, is a long-tailed keyword, again, here. So you could just blend all those lists together and create your long-tail keywords, and then essentially kind of create content around those. What I do recommend, though, is then taking it a step further and using technology. This is honestly where marketing, and specifically digital marketing, comes hand in hand, is using, again, human knowledge and then mixing it with technology. Again, like, you should never be doing one or the other. You shouldn't just be using technology and AI, and you shouldn't just be using, again, human knowledge. You should be mixing those together to get the best result. This is a prime example of it. You could start making these different types of lists, blending them together, and you've got some keywords that you think you should be able to kind of search for. Now, what you want to then do is use a technology to vet, verify, and potentially discover other related key terms that might be, again, just as good or have a higher ROI for you to build content around. And I'll get into that a little bit more in just a second. How we're going to use, or what content we're going to use, the 2 I recommend is called Moz and SEMrush. What these essentially do is you can upload these lists to there, and again, they're going to vet, verify, and potentially even discover other key terms, and to give you more of a roadmap. And so what's kind of nice is that both of these plans and platforms do have freemium models, which means you can use some of them for free, but you most likely are going to get to a point where you may have to pay a little bit. I will say they're very cost effective. They're built for small business owners, and it's well worth kind of your money. What you're going to get out of that then is, again, not only vetting and verifying your list, you're most likely even going to find and discover some new key terms that maybe you didn't think about. But the other key thing is this is going to help you with your roadmap of figuring out what it's going to take for you to rank on those key terms. That's the part that you're going to miss if you just make the list and go at it yourself, is when you mix it with Moz and SEMrush, you're now going to be able to see how many other people, essentially from a competitive standpoint, are going after that keyword. How many times people are searching for that keyword in your, again, area, if you're doing geographics, like within Minnesota. It's great if someone's looking for a plumber, But obviously, if you're a plumber here in the Twin Cities, you don't really care if someone's searching for a plumber in Wisconsin or even kind of Duluth for that matter. And so it's understanding kind of that. That's the key that you're going to get is you're going to create that list and go through that exercise. Then you're going to vet, verify, and discover it with then Moz and SEMrush. Coming out of that, then we have a lot of these keywords that we can start creating content onto our site. Now, again, if you already have a website, most likely you have some service pages or you have services or products or product categories on your site. Well, here it's now being able to take a step back and creating content. The reason you want to create, so here's kind of the unique, again, aspect that we find ourselves in is that everyone wants to create a website that has less and less words and more pictures, kind of the Instagram type of look and feel, which is great and it looks super good. The problem with that, though, is that while that looks good to users and to a lot of us, to Google, though, they still want to get your written word content out there. And that's the main way that you're going to communicate what you do, where you do it, and who you do it for. So we kind of have to blend those kind of together. And that goes into kind of some user experience and web development when it comes to that. But for content purposes, you want to make sure that you're building out these content pages. A good rule of thumb is every service or every product or category should have its own page. Yes, you can have just a services page at the top of your website that lists all of your services either in picture format or in bullet point, but you definitely should then have a link, either a learn more, read more, that then goes into more kind of detail. That's another example of how you could blend those. You can still get the aesthetic and not clutter up, every page with content, and then allow people, if they want to read more, to do that. You're also now creating content for Google to be able to essentially read and now be able to understand, again, what you do, where you do it, and who you do it for from there. So that's a kind of a key. The more you can splinter off and create more pages, remember, every time you create a page is a potential answer to someone's search query. So, and you also want to make sure just in general that your content is unique, natural, and relevant. Really what we're talking about here is just not copying and pasting. A lot of times using a copywriter, yes, you can use AI. If you're going to be using things like ChatGPT and other AI, it's a great way to get started. What I'll stress to you right now is do not just copy and paste that verbatim. Definitely try to change some of it or vet it out or edit it. Not only are people starting to realize that things are written by AI, but also Google and other search engines are starting to kind of look at that. And we're already seeing some, again, pieces of content either not being flagged necessarily, but that's where it's headed, where Google wants to see actual unique and natural. Again, absolutely can use ChatGPT. You can use ChatGPT to help you list out these different services, product categories, give you keyword kind of ideas, and then kind of vet them. You can have them help you create a blog or some service pages and then go in there and then, again, change it a little bit and edit it to make it sound more like you and just to make sure you add that human touch kind of to it. Absolutely. Again, that another example of blending that human knowledge with that technology kind of in there. But ultimately, again, really more is more here. The more content also are more answers to Google and ultimately what we're trying to kind of accomplish here. So making sure we have significant amount of content on the site, as well as when you're creating a piece of content or a page on your website, a good rule of thumb is to have at least 300 to 500 words per page. That's just a good rule of thumb so that we're getting the not only the marketing and the message across, but also giving Google enough to kind of realize and kind of sink their teeth into as well. Another kind of thing too, as we're talking about content, is content isn't just written words, even though it's probably the most important piece of content, but it's also understanding that video content is super, super valuable. If you want to take SEO seriously, you definitely should be looking at YouTube and video specifically. We have a whole workshop that just goes into kind of videos, and I'm not saying that you need to go hire a videographer and spend tens of thousands of dollars creating videos. That might be a solution that might be valuable. Videographers offer a fantastic value and can really represent your brand, especially as video becomes more and more important. A stat recently came out that said 2/3 of people would rather watch a video than read your page. And so it's important to kind of realize that we now kind of have to cater to both. We have to have the written word that kind of caters to the third, as well as Google, And then we should start creating videos that speak about that same type of content. If that's our services, if that's our FAQs, if that's our blogs, if that's our products, to also go after that, the majority now, as well as what Google's kind of seeing as well. So definitely look at video content as a way to up your game in SEO. And ultimately, again, it's essentially the point where you need to be, again, looking at video if you want to take SEO seriously and take it to the next level. Also, of course, making sure that your website and your content is up to date. Again, also looking at the user experience. Again, this kind of goes into front-end optimization, not only just the written words, but also, again, just because we have 500 words to a page, maybe you write an article and it's 1,000 words, doesn't mean we should just slap it in there just with black text on a white background. Maybe splitting it up with different, header tags or titles, or even adding in some pictures or videos. Again, making the experience of reading that content, not just some big block of text. And it may sound trivial just talking about spacing and adding some pictures, but it does go a long way. And I continue to see people that when they sometimes get so SEO focused, they just are all about writing content and they're forgetting about the way that someone's going to digest that or read that. We need to make sure that experience is there. And yes, that's a little bit more arbitrary. There's no, again, clear definition there, but Google does have different components built into their algorithm and the different spider techniques and the technology that they use in order to try to actually kind of analyze your page. So we sometimes call it a, text to media ratio, making sure, again, you have some pictures on your site, you're using titles, you're using different spacing, things like that. It's understanding, making sure we're looking at our different demographics, either if that's regionally by geographics or by service. People may be, again, speaking differently, talking differently, understanding things differently, and you want to make sure that that's reflected in your content and your website. Also, the Hummingbird update has been something that's been out for a while now, getting close to 10 years. But I do like to kind of mention this just because it goes into how search engines essentially work. So before, search engines were very, very literal. You type in, again, some keywords, they would just match them on a page, and that was kind of it. Now, yes, again, search engines still look for that. But what the Hummingbird update essentially does, though, is it looks for the meaning behind that. And so every time someone essentially is searching for something, Google's actually saying, well, okay, what does that actually mean? The example I always give, if you guys can see my camera, I'm holding up like a remote control for a TV. But if I were just to say to you guys, hey, why don't you go on to Google right now and search for this? I'm not telling you what to search for. I'm just showing you a picture and saying, okay, hey, go search for this. The reality is if we have 50 people searching, we might have close to 40 or 50 different results. They're very similar. They're all searching for the exact same thing, but all of us, again, process information differently, again, utilize information and search for information differently. But what's nice about this is, again, helping you. So the Hummingbird update is using Google's technology to try to understand and get in the mindset of that searcher to understand what they're searching for from a, from a basic level to then kind of apply that. This is why it's important to try to fracture out and create more and more pages, because you're giving Google more and more information to cross-reference. Just a couple last little things too that are important here is SSL. Make sure it's a little padlock or the HTTPS that you'll see on a URL in your website. Just make sure you have one of those. If you're seeing something that says not secure or something like that when you're looking at your website, you want to make sure that you're talking to your host company or whoever built your website. But SSLs are very important. And Google now is essentially, you essentially can get penalized if you don't have an SSL. They're also just, they're free nowadays, so you don't have to worry about a cost. And then the other thing too is because essentially that SEO is relationship based, we need to understand that it's a longer but stronger type of, again, value here. It's going to take you longer to build this up. If you're just starting new, if you're resetting, anything like that, we need to understand that this isn't going to just be a silver bullet and we're right to the top. Just like any long-term business relationship, you didn't have that business relationship with your top referral partner, with your top client, with even your best friend. That didn't happen overnight. That took, again, weeks, months, years to build up with different types of touch points at different times and everything like that. That's why it's important to realize that this is a long-term business relationship with Google as we go down this SEO journey. Also looking at some of just kind of the future, and the future is essentially kind of here. Obviously, we have artificial intelligence with ChatGPT. I've already kind of talked about that. It's absolutely, Google's is called Google Bard. And, Microsoft owns ChatGPT and is integrating that. So there's still a lot of unknowns with this, how this is going to be, but it's definitely, what we're kind of seeing here is that a lot more searches and stuff like that are going to be more informational or more conversational, when we kind of look at that. But for you right now, obviously it's important to realize AI and important to realize some of the tools out there. But for you is, how can it benefit you internally? Like I said, you can use it to start, giving you essentially a rough draft to edit off of your content, can give you different topics and ideas for blogs and videos, can even give you some keywords to potentially kind of do. Now, again, we should be verifying and vetting these out, from there. And also look at you should look at AI as not the answer, but a tool. That's probably the biggest thing that I can tell you, is to look at it as a tool, not the answer. We're also seeing more and more integration with social media, especially as platforms like, TikTok continue to grow and people are more video based and conversational based and how they're asking, and they're going to TikTok to search for things, not always just Google or other search engines. So it's important to kind of realize that. And then also, we're just seeing the different types of content become more and more relevant. Again, it's not just the written word, even though that's still very important. We're also talking about kind of the videos. We want to be more authentic. And so it kind of gets to be a catch-22 a little bit, where more authenticity usually means more high quality content, which usually takes a lot more time, energy, and budget to essentially accomplish. But it is important that it is becoming more of a quality game than a quantity game. And yes, we have to, mix in quantity and quality. And to be honest with you, we're kind of seeing a frontier where it's both. We need high quantity and high quality. Whereas I'll be honest, if you went back, 5-6 years on SEO, yes, you wanted quality content and not just crap out there. But I will say it was a lot more, quantitative, and it was more quantity, just getting more and more articles as fast as you can. Now it's starting to be more and more quality, and we have to mix those. So not gonna lie, it's harder, because now there's different ways, and there's different elements, and there's more elements that we're essentially utilizing to create these relationships up with Google. But it's important to kind of realize that if we want to take this and get, take this seriously and rank well, this is what we need to do. I talked about YouTube, previously. I just want to mention it again. Also encourage you guys to check out our other workshop on that if you're curious. But the biggest thing that I'd like to leave you with YouTube is that it's the second largest search engine in the world. So, Google owns number one. We also have number two here with, YouTube. As I mentioned, TikTok is, greatly increasing as well. And so we're seeing some of these other platforms that aren't traditional search engines now essentially becoming quasi search engines, because people are looking for the results on those pages. So it's also just important that we do utilize YouTube. And also, just from a kind of obvious standpoint too, is if we're trying to create a relationship with Google, YouTube is great. Not only did we talk about some of the video aspects of why video is just important, but also since YouTube is owned by Google, that also can just help your business relationship with Google when we're utilizing their platform as well. Also, again, we've talked, I talked a little bit at the beginning about kind of social media. Now, again, if you want to know, what platform is right for you, some of the new platforms, we start talking about TikTok and Threads and all these other kind of things, those are great. Again, and we have other workshops for that. What I just like to kind of mention is that being on social media can actually have a positive impact on SEO. And the four main platforms that we see this, and that does not mean that if you don't see your platform here, that it doesn't have a benefit. This is just strictly talking from an SEO perspective. These are the four main platforms that we see that are going to have the most benefit. So the first one is Google+, which was deprecated a few years ago. But the reason I still like to leave it on there and talk about it is that if you have a Google My Business, or kind of a Google business listing on Google Maps, there's a feature called Google Posts. That's essentially where Google+ went. Google+ was Google's version of Facebook. They deprecated that. It wasn't working out. But they took that component of posting and they moved it onto the Google My Business or Google Business Profile location pages on Google Maps. So definitely posting on those can have a positive impact on SEO. Posting on your business page on Facebook, on your business Twitter account or posting to Pinterest can also have a positive impact because Google has relationships with them where they're able to kind of essentially peer into those platforms, read, analyze, and associate that content with you. And not only have that help them, again, understand more and more of what you're posting, but also could be a solution to somebody's, again, search result. Where we mostly see this is Pinterest. So like if you go to Google Images and you start searching for an image, a lot of those images are resourced from Pinterest. So it can be a great way to improve your relationship there by doing that. So again, just another reason social media has so many other benefits, and probably even more so from a marketing kind of perspective and connecting with our demographics and our current customers and selling and brand awareness. But there is kind of a cool, again, SEO component that, that a lot of times people forget about as well. Also, the impact of mobile. So the biggest thing, obviously all of us in today's world in 2023 here are using mobile devices, are most likely accessing the internet on a very consistent basis on a mobile device. And that's reflected in the stats that we kind of see. The majority of, again, internet traffic is derived from a mobile device. But a few years ago, Google switched something really, really important, and it kind of flew under the radar. And it's called mobile first indexing. What mobile first indexing essentially is that Google looks at your mobile site and the experience, the speed, the user experience, the content, all of that from a mobile perspective, and essentially gives you a score there first and then moves on to your desktop. Why that's important is for a couple of reasons. One is it used to be the reverse, and the other thing, almost more importantly, is that us usually as business owners, business managers, and business professionals, we most likely are accessing our website, on a daily basis or on a consistent basis via desktop. And it absolutely was built, your website was built on a desktop, even though it's built for a mobile site. So it's kind of, again, you kind of have, again, just to watch it there, just to make sure that we're paying attention to your mobile experience. Sometimes I've talked to people and, for instance, they, again, forget about their mobile device and haven't even looked at it, and there are things broken, aren't showing up correctly. That's one of kind of a PSA announcement that I want you guys to take away from this, is to make sure you're paying attention to your mobile site. Some kind of things to kind of look at with user experiences on mobile, using the accordions. So instead of having paragraph upon paragraph on your home page, maybe you only have 2 or 3 sentences and then kind of the thing that says read more, and then it expands. That can actually improve user experience on a mobile device. Scrolling, this kind of goes with accordion, so we're not scrolling 7 times to get to a call to action. Where are your call to actions? Where, again, is the speed there? Just making sure that we understand and are conscientious of scrolling. And also media. If we're pumping our, again, websites full of videos and animated GIFs and all of this kind of stuff, it may not work that well on a mobile device. There are ways that you can code it to do that, but you need to make sure that it's being coded in a correct way. And these might be conversations that you talk with your web developer or company or marketing company that you're working with, but they are very important kind of questions to kind of be asking, because a lot of times, again, it may look fantastic on a desktop and it might be putrid on a mobile device. And so we want to make sure that our mobile site, knowing that it is required to have a mobile optimized site now. If you don't have a mobile optimized site, forget about creating a relationship with Google. And obviously with that being so, again, direct there, the better your mobile experience is, the better your relationship with Google will be as well. So we've kind of talked about local listings, Google My Business, Google Business Profiles, but I do like to kind of mention them. The 3 big ones that you'll see out there are Google, Bing, and Yelp. Those are by far the biggest ones. Those will comprise of approximately 85 to 90% of the different local listing kind of market share out there. Yes, there are dozens upon dozens of other local listings out there, but these are the 3 kind of top ones. We've all experienced local listings at this point. Again, being in 2023, they're essentially online yellow pages. I talked about with Google, the Google posts. That's a great way for you to, again, potentially increase your ranking on there and your relationship with Google. Obviously, it's a way to get reviews. Not only are reviews great for marketing, they're also great for SEO. And honestly, when someone tells me, hey, Ben, I need to start my SEO right now, what's the best and first thing I should start with? And I usually say a Google listing is usually the first biggest one, because it's very structured, it's very simple, and it's very powerful. Now, two things that I'd like to kind of recommend when we talk about local listings is one is called NAP. And NAP is again, is acronym for name, address, phone. And so you want to have as most consistent NAP across the internet. And so in that, obviously, local listings can help with that because we have the same name, we have the same address and phone. Now, if those things have kind of changed over in the course of years or whatnot, then obviously we want to make sure we get that kind of cleaned up. So I recommend a platform called Moz Local that will help you, again, kind of clean some of that kind of stuff up or start to verify those dozens upon dozens of other local listings. Now, here's what I usually say is when it comes to Google, Bing, and Yelp, you should actually take the time and go to each one of those websites and manually verify and create your local listing. For the other dozens upon dozens of ones, I would recommend doing Moz Local. And again, what Moz Local essentially do is they have relationships with all those other kind of ones in the different databases out there, so that when we essentially say, hey, here is our exact NAP of name, address, phone, it goes out there and essentially kind of cleans it up. This is just a smaller thing, but it can have an impact on your relationship up with Google. So Google isn't getting differing information out there when they're seeing different, again, addresses, phones, or names associated with your business. Another Google tool to kind of look at is Google Analytics. And if you've been noticing or paying attention to some of the stuff that Google's been putting out over the past couple months and even a year, Google Analytics has gone through a mass transformation. Again, if you want to know more about it, I encourage you to check out some of our other workshops we have on Google Analytics. But July 1st, so not that long ago, Google actually just deprecated what was called Google, Analytics Universal. This is the, this is the analytics platform that's been in existence from Google from the very beginning. They've now changed it to now what it's called Google Analytics 4.0. And it's not just a name change. They've changed the entire platform, how they're tracking, and so you actually have to reset up your Google Analytics and make sure that it's connected and optimized. But analytics at the end of the day is super important. Now, just being on analytics isn't going to help you rank better, isn't really even going to help your relationship with Google, but it's going to help you understand the relationship with Google, because we're going to understand who's coming to the site, what pages are performing, where maybe some of the, pitfalls of our site is kind of happening, and those types of things. So you absolutely need to have analytics, even more so now because analytics has turned into Google Analytics 4.0. You absolutely need to be kind of doing that. And if you have questions on Analytics 4.0, please reach out and ask. Just because of all the changes, it does get a lot of, causes a lot of confusion, and you want to make sure things are set up correctly, because obviously you have to reset up your analytics essentially with Analytics 4.0, and it's a completely different way to analyze your analytics and the traffic and metrics on your website. But at the end of the day, very important and absolutely essential to any marketing, campaign, or, even SEO for that matter, even just granularly. Another important tool that you should be utilizing is Google Search Console. So Google Search Console is super important, and honestly, it's only gotten more and more valuable over the past 4 or 5 years. What Google Search Console allows you to do is to essentially kind of see how Google's seeing your website and give you a direct kind of insight, not only to how Google's kind of seeing them, but to also communicate with Google for potentially different issues or things that you might be seeing on your site that you want to improve. So the first basic one that we can do is called a sitemap. This is just a bare bones or a skeleton of your website. It's essentially just outlining all of the pages and the different, kind of search results that would be associated with your website. We're essentially uploading this to kind of Google. Now, what's kind of nice is if you're kind of confused on what a sitemap is, how do I upload it? There's a very simple step-by-step. Really just needs to be one time uploaded. You can also ask your web development company or your marketing company to make sure that a sitemap was created and uploaded to Google. But essentially what this will allow is every time that you add a page or edit a page on your website, it essentially is pinging Google to say, hey, I've got something here. I need you to make sure that you have a refresh and a fresh reading of this site so that you know everything that's going on. Another key thing that they've really done a great job of with is alerts. So you can get 2 different types of alerts, essentially yellow warnings or red, essentially kind of errors. Yellow warnings are more kind of suggestions to Google that they might be seeing. Sometimes you get some, some false negatives, and, Google just read your site kind of incorrectly and you kind of have to look at them. But if you're ever getting a red error on your site, from Google, that's something you want to take, very seriously. Maybe pages went down, your website went down, it could be potentially your website was hacked. Google's seeing it very, again, differently. Something is essentially amiss and something is wrong. But Google Search Console is a fantastic way for SEO, for you to, again, start communicating to Google, seeing how Google's seeing your site, and also even getting some keyword data on where you might be ranking on certain type of keywords and key phrases that you're trying to rank for as well. Last but not least, before we kind of start to wrap it up and open it up for questions, is I just like to kind of talk about for a second Google Ads. Now, again, we have a whole workshop just on Google Ads, but I like to kind of mention this because there's a couple of myths out there. First is, if you run Google Ads, that is not improving your long-term business relationship with Google. But having a long-term business relationship with Google and improving your SEO can actually improve your ads, and it comes down to trust. Yes, Google at the end of the day is going to take the money from somebody that wants to run an ad. But if they trust you and you've proven that to them with SEO and building that long-term business relationship with SEO, they're then in turn, a lot of times we'll see you'll get better rankings or for lower cost because they trust you more, and ultimately they want to look like a rock star to the users. So if they know that you're going to be able to answer what someone's searching for, they want to reward you for that. So it is important to realize that it is a one-way street, meaning that SEO influences SEM. SEM does not influence SEO. And just in case to make sure that we're all on the same page, SEM simply stands for search engine marketing. It's essentially your PPC, your pay-per-click ads. It's your, again, display ads, your retargeting, your YouTube ads. It's an all-encompassing term we use now instead of just PPC. So that's just to make sure that we're on the same page there with SEM. So again, Google Ads can be very, very powerful. It's just understanding how SEO fits into that and how that influences it as well. Okay, so looking at kind of a recap here before we, answer a lot of your guys' questions, so I encourage you guys to put them in the chat, is, if you're gonna take away one thing, as I said, is SEO is having a long-term business relationship with Google. And we want to essentially create high quality, but multiple, again, quantity pieces of that. And so we wanna make sure that we start with that keyword research, that we make sure that every service has its own separate page. Also want to make sure that we have, again, high quality content, 300 to 500 words per page when we're kind of looking at that. Looking at, doing the keyword research and using Moz or SEM Rush. Looking at our Google local listing, our analytics, our search console. Looking at these different kind of components and just outlining and mapping them. Again, the first place you should start here is with that keyword research, and then start to flow into creating that content, optimizing that content, putting that onto the website, improving user experience with the content you now have, making sure that it's mobile friendly, integrating it into social media. And then honestly, make sure that it's, again, connected and we can now review it with analytics, maybe adding some ads to it. That's essentially the flow of this presentation, is really how you should be approaching this from a marketing campaign, or specifically, obviously, an SEO kind of campaign and strategy. Okay, so with that said, I want to open it up to questions. I know we've got several here in the chat. So again, if you guys have any, please put them in here and I will go through them. So Deb asked, is it worth to pay for Moz or SEM Rush? Which should I start with for a small location construction business? So I will say, I firmly believe that it's worth it to pay for Moz and SEM Rush. And I'm not getting paid to say that. I don't get any kickbacks or anything like that. The reason I say that is because the freemium model is just going to give you some basic information, but again, it's very cost effective in order to kind of, put that into there. If you're looking at which one to kind of utilize, I prefer SEM Rush because it gives it there's a little bit more intricate data and some more graphs that we can do. Moz can be a little bit more kind of simplistic and kind of storytelling, which is fine. But for me, if I was going to recommend one, I would say probably start with SEM Rush and kind of go from there. Josh has a question that said, hearing endless blog pages can work against SEO as it weighs down the site. Thoughts? So yes and no. I mean, if they're just blog pages that are copied from other ones and you're not changing anything, you're not offering anything that would be of value to your website, yes. But if you're creating endless amounts of quality pieces of content that maybe have videos and images and you actually created them, then no, absolutely those things are going to kind of, again, impact you positively. It comes down to kind of the quality of them. Sometimes we've seen where people just copy and paste a page and change one or two words. Well, again, sorry to say, guys, Google is smart enough to kind of catch that. So, and also the thing is too is, content pieces can weigh your site down, but that's only if you're not paying attention to user experience. Again, weighing down is kind of just a loaded kind of term there, and understanding that you can literally have hundreds, if not thousands of pages, and it comes down to the user experience of being able to access them. Pam has a question that says, does Google like hashtags? Well, hashtags are really only utilized in social media or sometimes on blog posts to be able to kind of internally kind of tag them. So there's really no benefit from an SEO or Google perspective on hashtags, but obviously hashtags are greatly utilized more on social media, or if you do see them on a website, a lot of times they're called tags, and they're usually tagging a blog post, but that's more so that a user has a better user experience on there, but the direct hashtags aren't going to have an impact on you from an SEO. Awesome. Just looking at the different questions here. So Lucy says, I think I need UX. How do I find someone who can help? So, I'll be honest, Lucy, that's something we can definitely kind of help you with, but you can also look online. There's a lot of good resources out there when you start looking into UX, or again, just in case we're searching for this, user experience kind of design. But if it's something that you want to talk with, we absolutely do UX design here and UX strategy here at Skoll Marketing. And really what it is it's just understanding two main things. Understanding how understanding how your users or potential users are going to and want to read your information. And then how do we lay that out so that it's communicated to Google and structurally is going to be accounted for on your website. Tisha has a question that says, is it possible to use SEO to target specific areas? If yes, what is the best way? Tisha, absolutely. That's, again, we call it essentially local SEO. Like I was saying, like the plumber example, you might be a plumber here in the Twin Cities in Minnesota here, but again, obviously you're not going to go out to North Dakota or Florida, but even so, you probably aren't going to go to Duluth or Bemidji also. So absolutely, you can use SEO to target specific areas. A lot of times how you're doing that is both front end, back end, and offsite optimization. So you're creating content that most likely will be tagged with those terms, which those cities or states that you're going to target. You can also communicate some of this on the back end to Google where you're kind of located, and also using local listings, as another way that you can communicate that. So it's a little bit of a loaded question there, and there's definitely obviously much more to that process. But on a very simplistic term, the answer is yes. It comes down to your content and then utilizing front end, back end, and offsite optimization in order to be able to communicate that. I have another question that says, which is better for SEO, a 5-page website or a 20-page one? Well, again, at just face value, absolutely a 20-page one. But if it's just 20 pages of a couple sentences, that's not going to do it. So 20 pages done right, 100%. But you just need to make sure that you have that, again, usually that 300 to 500 words per page or whatever. Because again, remember guys, is that the more pages we have, essentially the more solutions we are giving to Google so they can give those to their users. So, when in doubt, yes, more pages are there. It's just the caveat that you need to make sure that we also have it be quality content and not just crap. Jesse asks, is there a workshop on where to insert the SEO front end and back end? We do have an SEO 2.0 course, Jesse, but also when you get specifically where to place things, you also have to remember that there are a ton of different CMS systems, which mean content management systems. That's like WordPress, Joomla, Squarespace, Weebly, Wix, and the actual how you implement those in the back differ between different platforms. So you can find some of that out online, and you can use, so a lot of what we do are obviously the core principles, but the actual specific application of where to click and where to go to is going to change from website to website. I have another question. Would it be a good strategy to go for a mobile only site? No. And honestly, it's really hard to create a mobile only site in today's world. And so really what you want to do is you want to create a responsive site. So that's where if you've ever taken the corner of your web page and brought it in, it automatically conforms. What that's called is that's called a liquid template. And we're essentially, again, conforming to the device that it is. So you really want to just create a mobile only site, really honestly, from a cost perspective, from a design perspective, you want to make sure that you're really just leaning into responsive, because then you get into people have different size phones, and then they have tablets and phablets and, again, different size computers. So you really want to lean into responsive design. Not having mobile only sites just really aren't a thing and not really applicable to small businesses. So Lucy, how do you set up a business profile? Again, a location on Biz and Yelp. Honestly, the best way is if you just Google it, there'll be just simple instructions on how to set that up. It's really just very similar to Google. You're just going to find the right link, start typing in your, again, your name, address, phone, pictures, and everything like that. So Lori said, this is making my head spin. Small business recently started to dive into this. Would it be best to hire someone to help or continue to try to figure this on my own? Well, Lori, again, obviously, absolutely understand that this is a lot to handle. And I also know that I get very excited when I talk about this stuff and talk fast. That's also why we do record these, and we will give you guys the presentation to help you digest this at your own speed. Now, again, Lori, if you are struggling with this, here's my thing is, it can absolutely be beneficial. It's, no jokes aside, that's kind of why I have a job and why School Marketing has been around for 10 years, is helping small business owners like yourself be able to kind of do this, because this is a whole separate thing, and it's only grown exponentially over the past 10 years, again, with it and the importance of it, especially during and after COVID, it's just digital marketing is becoming more. So if you do need help, absolutely. And actually, it's a great segue. So obviously, School Marketing has a way to give back. We do these free workshops and webinars, but we do also offer free consultations. And this isn't a sales pitch. If you guys want to talk to us about our, services in there, absolutely more than happy to do that. But I do understand that this is a lot of process, process and just information to get all at one point. A lot of times I know it's like drinking from a fire hose. So I encourage you, Lori, and anyone else that might be feeling like that, or if you just have questions, to take me up on it. Again, it's a no obligation free consultation. And it's because I know that I have to teach in a classroom style here to, again, 50 people that I can't see, and I don't know all the backgrounds to you guys. But then when we can actually meet, I can help you. And, again, we can kind of help you decide and where to go. Now at School Marketing, what's kind of great is that we offer consulting. So if it's something you just want to learn more and be able to do yourself, we can absolutely do that. Or we can also do it for you. Or again, you can potentially you can also see our other workshops at schoolmarketing.com/workshops. We also record all of our previous topics that are on our YouTube channel, which are on demand for free at any point. So that might be another place that you guys could kind of look at to just get some more kind of information. So absolutely would love to kind of help you with that. And either if you want to do that more yourself with some of the free information, with some of the free one-on-one that we offer, or if you want to look at more of the full service that we can offer, or there's also, of course, other agencies out there too that might be able to help you, as well. Okay, Deb has a question. I've been going through the process of getting Google verified. We had to create a video of the plumber at his business. Is verification that important? Yes. So Google, when you're creating your Google My Business, this is the Google Business little red pin on the map, is Google is definitely becoming harder and harder trying to verify that you're an actual business. So yes, you might be asked to create a video. You might be asked to take pictures of your location. And unfortunately, Google kind of makes the rules here. And so again, so yes, you kind of do need to follow them and make sure that you're kind of following their requests, unfortunately, because if not, sometimes Google can even take down your page if it's not verified. So awesome. Well, it looks like that's all the questions that we have. Again, I really want to thank you guys. This honestly has been one of the more fun ones. When you guys ask questions, that makes, again, this so much more fun for me than just kind of teaching. So I really appreciate the questions. I hope it was useful. Again, I know that it's a lot to handle, and I know that there is a lot of information here. You guys have my information here. You'll be getting an email from me later. Take me up on, if you guys have questions, that's what we're here for. That's how we give back. Look at our other workshops. Tune into our next SCORE workshop. And like I said, also, if you want to do a free workshop, a free consultation, feel free just to give us a call or shoot me a direct email. That's my direct email address, and be happy to set one of those up. And at the end of the day, just want to say thank you guys again for tuning in. Hope you guys learned a bunch. Have a great day, and skål.